Hey, Midgardians, I'm Clay.
And I'm Joe.
Welcome to That Midgard Show. This is a podcast where we talk about the Midgard campaign setting published by our friends at koboldpress. In this episode, we're going to talk about Zobeck's Market District.
Yeah, in our last episode, we mentioned that many of our viewers and listeners are anxious for us to get to other parts of Midgard, and we hear you guys. We just want to spend a little more time on Zobeck because this is where Midgard all began, and it's where many of our new GMs and players start their adventures. So we're going to do one more episode after this one, and then on the Temple District of Zobeck and outlying areas, and then we'll do another episode about the gangs in Zobeck, and from there we'll move on. And at some point, we want to come back to Zobeck with a special guest just to talk about how Zobeck evolved over the various editions and many of Zobeck's ionic characters.
For the next few episodes, we're going to skip our adventure recap and creature showcase to give us more room and time to wrap up Zobeck. We really want to finish this up. It's been a lot of fun doing Zobeck, but I'm jonesing to get into other areas of Midgard. So, Joe, let's get into the Market District. So the Market District is also called the Vineyard District. This quarter is filled with small shops and artisans who sell goods to everyone. You can find cloth, leather, weapons, poison, scrolls, and carpets all for sale here. Everything but food stuff, livestock, spices, which are sold in Lower Zobeck, and slaves, which are forbidden in the Free City. The merchants work out of the tiny stalls, and the areas are no larger than pantries. But the demand for space in the district is huge. Most merchants live above or behind their shops and have done so for many generations. Four Quarter Street in the Market District is devoted to the goods of distant lands. The street's market offers indecipherable scrolls from Seawall and the Arboness, strange alchemical powders, and statues of unknown gods. There are more mundane goods here as well, such as amber, furs from the Rotherian plains, exotic woods from all over Midgard, and garments of silk, shima, and Harkesh lace. Even some minor magic items from Bemia turn up somewhere along the street, though nothing is too fine. The Market District is all about trade. It is busiest from the months of mustering and red leaf, or spring to harvest time. In winter, the district caters only to the city's own inhabitants. So this is an area where GMs can locate any type of shop you want, any sort of personality you want. It's a big district. Think of it as a bazaar, or in a modern analog, it's the city's mall.
Yep. I mean, there's so much stuff here, right? Like I kind of just picture the busy streets, stalls, and like rugs laid out with goods, vendors shouting. When I had my players kind of going through there with Black Guy kind of through the on his cart, he'd bring them by different stalls and they'd come up trying to hand them fruit and fish and, all sorts of stuff. So definitely kind of give it that really busy, bazaar type feel because that's exactly what it's meant to be. And there's some really cool shops as well, right? It's not just street merchants, but there are lots of shops and things like that. This is a great place to throw in your magic shops, potion shops, whatever they want, right? But there are a few called out in the Clockwork City book that we'll kind of go over here. The first is the Brewers Sisterhood. So this is a whole bunch of brew mistresses. They are super beloved throughout the city for their beer, their barley wine. They have these like huge copper kettles that they brew everything in. It's super, super cool. They're these hardworking craftswomen, and they kind of compete amongst themselves to see, who's the best, but, in a friendly way, right? It's all friendly rivalries and stuff like that. They'll have a contest each year during the River Fair when the bargemen and the stevedores and all the apprentices of the city sample and vote on the quality of all of these different beers and stuff like that. And copious amounts of booze is drunk during this. So it's kind of cool. I wanted to do something where it was like a beer and chili cook-off in the streets of the city. I thought would be fun.
That's so cool.
So, I'm going to throw some chili in there. And when I do it, I'm going to actually, do a whole bunch of microbrews for my players and make some, homemade chili and serve it at the table for everybody. So I'm going to, kind of make a whole thing out of it. But in terms of like numbers, like how big is this, it's weird. It's a shop, but I kind of picture it also. It's a bit of a guild as well, right? So in terms of their numbers, the Sisterhood generally has it's fairly small. There's about 40 members at a time, but about 60 or 70 apprentices. And what's cool is you get a lot of these like younger ladies that maybe are like age 9, 10, who will come. They're like street urchins and runaways that will come there to apprentice and help out. And it's a way to get them off the streets and working and some coin in their hand. So there's this guild mistress. Her name is Ludmilla Schenk. And she's this kind of crooked back dwarven crone, but she's really smart. She's canny enough to keep the bargemen and the coopers as allies. So she's kind of has a bit of pull in the city. Especially when you got a city of just like half the population is dwarven. Beer's a commodity, so they definitely have some pull in the city, right? So what's cool is where I'm from, in Arizona, we have a couple of local breweries, and every bar you go to in the city, they're going to serve one or two of those beers. And it's the same thing here. It's almost like almost every tavern is going to carry some of their beers. You'll find various beers from, they got a few they name calling. One's called Chimney Sweep Stout. There's the Silver Hop Lager. And these are just distributed not just in the city, but up and down the river, and they're popular amongst centaurs and the other races around the area. You might even find in some of the smaller towns in the Margrave Forest, things like that. The Sisterhood does not dabble in magic at all. They do okay, right? They're not extravagant, they're not wealthy, but they just get by. They manage, and I kind of picture them as these very happy women, happy in their work, enjoy what they do greatly. They have the respect of people of the city. So it's just kind of this cool group of a mix of races, but I kind of picture it as a lot of dwarven women, street urchins and stuff like that, just kind of running around. I can see these girls like mashing up hops and just doing all sorts of cool stuff. So if you're at all into beer, and you maybe want to brew or a bit about it, you could really kind of get into the details of it. I even thought about, getting some fresh hops and like putting on the table, just get that aroma going and stuff like that. So it's just kind of a cool thing to do. So definitely a neat location. She is Ludmilla is just another one of those people that definitely has some pull. When she says stuff, people listen. She has an ear in every tap room, friends at every table. So she gets information, and information's an asset, right? So she's old enough to remember the revolt, and she's very loyal to the city and the idea of the city's freedom and prosperity and stuff like that. So when she reaches out to people or goes to the council or the mayor and says something, it carries that weight. So I don't know. This is one of my favorite groups. There's a subclass of cleric in Midgard called the Beer Domain. So I could definitely see a beer cleric maybe being there, blessing the beer, things like that. Have some fun with it. It's definitely just this cool, interesting place. And I feel like there's just a lot of, fun to be had at your table with this location.
Yeah, it's super cool. I mean, it's females doing a trade that in medieval times were largely done by men. Now, they're not clerics. There's no magic. They're focused on the trade, but there's no reason why you can't tweak it a little bit. Have them be like one of the breweries that brews the special beer, for the Beer Domain clerics or what have you. You can
they worship the beer god. The beer clerics pay them visits, and they donate to the beer god, the beer clerics, and stuff like that.
Yeah, and if you want, turn it into a beer god temple.
Yeah, you could do that.
Yeah,
better yet, a beer cult.
Beer cult.
A beer cult.
That's an interesting one. Like we're gonna have to make something up and talk about that.
Did you ever watch? Sorry, this a little off the rails. But did you ever watch Chip and Dale's Rescue Rangers when you were a kid?
I did.
There was an episode where they found a cult that was like a cola cult called Cuckoo Cola. Take that and turn it into beer and Zobeck, and you have a great adventure.
There you go. Yeah. So this next location in the Market District is one of my favorites as well, because my player Eggy, my super chill hippie druid Eggy Ruber, he would definitely hang out at Hommal's Botanical Rooftop. Oh, it's so chill, man. Just to be serious, this tenement is owned by Hommal Adjic. It's a 5-story tenement that borders the Market District and Lower Zobeck, just on the waterfront. And atop of the building lies his true passion and major source of income. It's a lush, overgrown botanical garden with multiple interlocking greenhouses and patios, overburdened with ferns, saplings, and hanging mosses. Hommal has a small monopoly on certain fibers and extracts within Zobeck and supplies brewers, alchemists, and cooks across the city. He's an honest businessman for the most part. Hommal has found his garden declared a neutral and safe meeting place for a number of Zobeck's criminal organizations. And for serving tea, Hommal avoids paying protection money to any group. Now, this is one of a few different locations in Zobeck that is kind of like holy ground, where people can come together, make a deal, and business is put first and foremost rather than
The knife.
The knife, yeah. So, yeah, Hommal's Botanical Rooftop is one of those. We talked about the Wheat Sheaf Tavern in our last episode in Lower Zobeck. And then several episodes ago was the Bathhouse. And that's another place. I mean, what can you do when you're not wearing any clothes? So the Bathhouse is one of those places.
Yeah, it's kind of cool, though, to see like the gangs just say, okay, these places are neutral ground. When we're here, we can make deals, no reprisals, no fights. Like this is a safe space to conduct business without fear of a knife in the back. And I feel like breaking those rules would have a lot of consequences for a gang, right? If one of those gangs broke the rules, I feel like the other gangs would take action against them, all of them, would kind of team up against that one. So nobody really tries to break those rules.
So there's a map in the tenement and a great write-up in the chapter of all of the individual spaces. We're not going to get into those in this episode. Again, you have the garden on the rooftop. And then at the lower floor, you have 4 workshops, complete with their own storefronts. So this is where you can locate some tradesmen or some crafters or what have you.
Right.
The rest of it is just living areas. A lot of families share a single room. It's not a luxurious place, but it's safe and it's dry, and it's a good place for people to sleep. And so if your PCs need a place to stay, the tenement can be one of those places.
Yeah, it's mostly like just apartments, right? It's going to be like common workers and stuff like that work there or that live there. Sometimes there'll be, women staying home with the kids. But like certain families will share responsibilities or, this person's going to do the laundry, this person's going to do the cooking. So it's kind of a community living area sort of thing. Yeah, I don't know if there's going to be a ton of adventure to be had there. There is a map of it, though. Maybe somebody's hiding out there. It could be a place to hide out for your PCs or for the bad guy. I did make a map of the entire tenement building for my game. So that's another one I can share on our Discord server with the episode in case you want it for your VTT. The maps in the book are great, but there's no digital file for you to grab and put on your virtual tabletop, so to speak. So if you want some maps, I'll share the ones I made with you guys.
Building has seen better days, but it's still standing. It's still a clean, dry place to lay your head at night.
Yeah, it's got some cool rooms too. There's a couple different greenhouses. There's a tea kitchen. There's like a little vineyard with grapes and berries. There's a little like a gardener's den, a little pond. So all sorts of little locations around the rooftop to do different stuff. I know in my adventure, they met in one of the smaller greenhouses. There's like a table set up there, Hommal served tea, and the players had to, meet with some members of the Cloven Nine and make a little trade. A cool area, and like I said, that whole neutral ground thing makes it a prime area for some really cool role-playing interactions. So definitely worth checking out. Hommal too, like he's a gardener, right? So he's making herbs. He has all these different herbs and stuff like that. But there's some stories out there about him getting strong-armed to maybe make some illicit materials, poisons, drugs, things like that. So maybe he's not happy with that arrangement. Maybe he wants to hire the PCs to come and help get rid of those that are doing that to him. So they think it's a safe space, and maybe he's going to drop a little poison in that tea and let the players sort it out for him, that kind of thing. So there's lots and lots of possibilities to be had there, but cool location, cool NPC for the players to interact with.
How did you play him when your characters interacted with him?
Quiet. Yeah, he was quiet and reserved. They had been in a fight down in the stairwell. This is all part of Everyone Lies. So there was a fight in the stairwell. They got, they were injured. They were a little bruised up. So when they got up, he was just like, he was like, "Gods, you look horrible." He's like, he kind of chuckled a little. He's like, the person you want to see is waiting over here. He showed him over to the greenhouse, sat them down, offered them some tea, and walked out. He was very quiet. He's just, he knows what's going on, but doesn't want to know what's going on, So he talked briefly, led them there, and left them to their business. And that was really it with the whole interaction with him at that point. I think that at some point he might reach back out to them for some help. He'll remember what happened up there because there was a little bit of a tiff towards the end, and he saw how they handled themselves. So I'm thinking at some point he may reach out to them to help him with something. I don't know what yet. I'm still working on the details.
Yeah. None of my PCs have ever interacted with Hommal, but I almost imagine him like Mr. Miyagi from Karate Kid. Sitting at a table working on a bonsai tree, trying to catch a fly with chopsticks or something like that. So I like the fact that you played him as this quiet, reserved character, and I agree with that. I think, it fits. And, I think, my character, Eggy, he would totally move in with the guy and, help him with cultivating his gardens.
I was going to say, I kind of pictured him more like an older neighbor in your neighborhood that just likes his garden, right?
Right.
I described him as this kind of, older guy, maybe like not too old, but like mid 60s, bald, with just a little bit of white hair around, just like a little, shirt. Like I just pictured him like this, that old quiet neighbor in your neighborhood who just is always out tending his garden. Quiet, like howdy neighbor kind of guy, Yeah. So that's kind of how I kind of envisioned him was very mild mannered.
Yeah. What's next, Joe?
So there is another book shop in this district, and unlike the one over in the Collegium district, there is no naughty part to this one. It is called Ulmar's Rare Books, and it is a quirky place because unlike the other one, the dwarf that runs this bookstore does not like customers. So he's got this kind of attitude towards his customers that makes people really not want to go there unless they have to. So Ulmar this is situated kind of down near Lower Zobeck, but it doesn't see a lot of traffic. You would think, like, how does he even stay in business? And really the answer to that is he's into some other stuff too. But the assortment of books available is actually fairly impressive. People like scholars and stuff will go there. If they're looking for something super obscure, he probably would have something. Also, he is actually very gifted at repairing books and binding books. So if you have like a damaged book or something like that, he can repair it for you. He also forges books. He'll take rare books and he will make copies of them and forge them, which is kind of interesting. Maybe he'll even take like a book and forge it to look like it was a first edition or something along those lines so he can sell it for more money. Or there may be wealthy people who are looking for a certain book, a rare book that they can't get their hands on, so they'll go to him to make a copy of it. So it looks like they have something impressive even though they don't. So he's actually quite gifted at doing that. But he, with the right phrase, he'll recommend certain things. So he's you have to be one of those people who knows. So you could drop a phrase and he might recommend a book for purchase from like the Spyglass Guild or another code word, and he'll bring out a book or a package from the Rivermen. So just depending on what you know and who you kind of get different stuff from him. The level of service never improves. He probably doesn't like you. If you want to get his attention, maybe bust out a rare book that he might be interested in. But if he doesn't like it, he'll just get, aggravated and call it, common or mundane or whatever. And like, if you walk into a shop too, like I kind of picture like you walk into the shop, you see this dwarf sitting behind the desk reading, because that's generally what he's doing is reading. And you'll be like, excuse me. And he'll just ignore you or he'll hold up a finger. and he'll just kind of wait until he finds a good stopping point in his book, and then he'll close it and kind of look at you annoyed, like, what do you want? So interesting character, interesting bookstore. There is a basement downstairs that I believe has kind of a bit of a workshop and stuff like that, where he's binding books and things like that. There's also a secret entrance to the cartways down there behind a bookcase, so you can definitely do something with that. One of in Zobeck's Clockwork book, they do talk about some scenarios, and they even talked about him being involved with some slaves that he was like holding to sell to Morgul. So yeah, I mean, he's definitely into some illicit stuff. They talk about secret messages in books, or how he'll have books hollowed out to store, like, contraband, drugs, things like that. So I can see it as maybe a gang using him to help to pass on illicit materials and things like that inside a book as like a cover. So yeah, he's definitely probably not the most honest guy in the world, but he does have good books. So, your wizard or something like that may still want to pay the shop a visit.
Yeah, I used that shop in an adventure I ran in Zobeck. I believe it was a long time ago, and I believe it was Hell Comes a Glittering. I added some encounters where they found a rare book amongst some of the belongings of one of the murder victims, and they went to his shop. I played him, Ulmar, just as it is in the book. Cranky jerk. Almost like the soup Nazi from Seinfeld, but a lot more.
No book for you.
Yeah, no book for you. But my PCs, wanted to turn the book back in because it was evidence, but they wanted a copy of it. And there were some pieces that they needed to have translated, and they, needed that copy to fulfill their mission. They said any evidence they found would be turned over to the city. So they said, yes, we'll turn over the city, but you never said we couldn't make a copy of it. So they paid him quite dearly, to copy that book for him.
That's cool. Yeah, I haven't had a need to use him yet, but seems like a cool place to go, and just another one of those really cool characters. That's one of the things I really like about Zobeck and what the material Koboldpress has provided to us on Zobeck is all these interesting NPCs that just have a lot of personality. He's no exception. Yeah.
And there are some scenarios printed in the book, as hooks for that district. Do consider them, do use them. Some of them are pretty good. One is called Secret Messages. The Spyglass Guild passes messages tucked between the pages of certain books in the store. And one of the PCs or an NPC friend accidentally purchased a book containing a coded message. So what happens next? Blue House comes after you. They take you to the lower basement of the Blue House, which is a place that you never want to go. All right. kinds of different hooks. Books are just one of those things that you can use for any sort of adventure. As a place to look up information, a place to have a book translated by a person very knowledgeable in rare books. An antagonistic NPC that will tell you this book is crap and nothing and give you, a couple of silver for it when it turns out to be something of amazing rarity. So yeah, don't shirk bookstores. And yeah, you're right. This is a completely different place than the Book Fetish. This is your straight up rare books antique shop, and it's a cool place.
I could see him sending the players to like the Old Strauss library to look for some rare volume, right? I mean, that would be a dangerous mission too. But I could see him hiring the party and be like, go to the Old Strauss library. There's this volume of blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. Going to the Old Strauss library is an adventure on its own. And that could lead to some dangerous encounters.
Yeah. And, if you haven't figured it out already, there is just so much around Zobeck. And so much you can just pick up and place, somewhere else in any of your adventures. So, yeah, a lot of players, a lot of GMs do not like to run urban adventures. They want to be out there fighting monsters and doing other things. But there's other antagonists that you can deal with inside an urban adventure. And don't sell them short. Give it a go. I promise you, your people will have fun. And they'll especially have a lot of fun when there's a ready shop where they can buy healing potions, super easy, have a clean bed to sleep in at night, good warm food. Yep. So, not the hardships of being on the road.
Spend all that money.
Yeah.
They need a place to spend all that money they're earning. Like when you're out in dungeons in the woods, they're gathering all this gold and got nothing to do with it. So when you're in a city, man, they can go spend it every night.
Right. There's a table in the book that you can use to purchase businesses and property and what have you. And that, Joe, you brought up a good one. That's a big problem that these players amass all this gold. They're coming home with wheelbarrows full of gold, and there's so much they can't carry it. So banks don't give interest there. They charge you to store your money there. So you might as well buy a business and have some passive income and stuff like that.
Take a look at Tome of Heroes. There is a whole wonderful, wonderful section on downtime activities, on owning businesses, all sorts of cool stuff. Definitely worth looking at, and a great way for your players to do stuff in Zobeck between sessions, or in any really urban environment. I mean, you can do stuff between sessions out on the road, but generally speaking, we talked about in our very first episode of this show, we talked about the time flies rule, where if you spend, let's say, 2 weeks between your sessions of game, 4 weeks passed in game. And during that time, your players can be doing downtime. And generally that has to happen in a settlement, in a town or a city. So if they're in Zobeck and they got 4 weeks to spend between their last adventure and this next one, they could be running a tavern. They could be training, looking for training to improve in a skill. They could be buying, new weapons or crafting stuff. I mean, there's so much to do and spend all that hard-earned gold on. So having that urban environment really, I think, allows for your players to do a little bit more with their skills and other stuff that maybe they can't do sitting around a campfire in the middle of the forest. Yeah.
And, in my Southlands campaign, the characters have been adventuring so long in Hommal. They've wrapped up their story arc. Their home base is per Bastet, and it's time for them to do a little urban adventuring or urban downtime before they head off on their next adventure, which is going to be in the jungles of the central continent of the Southlands.
Yeah,
and so that's going to be fun.
I know what you mean. Yeah, my last campaign, our players, we did Tome of Annihilation, so they were in Schultz so long they didn't see much civilization. So I was like, this campaign, we're starting off in the city. We're going to spend some time in the city. We're not going to be there the whole time, but I'm going to give them a little bit, a taste of urban life and adventure for, at least a few levels, at least through tier 1 before I send them out into the rest of the world. I definitely at some point want to bring mine back so they can go to Castle Shadowcrag around that level 10, 11 zone and do the Castle Shadowcrag adventure. So I think that really wraps it up for the Market District. I know this wasn't an overly long episode, but we just wanted to kind of get through this one for you guys because it is a cool area. And we'll be back next week with to kind of wrap up the remaining districts of Zobeck. So thanks for hanging out with us.
Joe, how can people reach you?
Yeah, you guys can always find me on Twitter at toolbox_GM. And of course, I have my YouTube channel, which is GM Toolbox. I'm also on TikTok and Facebook and Instagram and all those at GM Toolbox as well. And I'm always on the Midgard Adventures Discord server at GM Toolbox there. How about you, Clay? How can they reach you?
Yeah, you can reach me on Midgard Adventures Discord server at Clayton Thompson, and that's Thompson without a P. This is a great place to get to know Midgard, interact with other fans of Midgard. We're independent. It's a fan-based cooperative group that is affiliated with koboldpress. So there you'll find all kinds of stuff about Midgard lore, other community members sharing their tips and tricks, answering your questions. And we also offer organized play games, both online and IRL in a few locations around the United States. Our community is open to everyone, particularly those new to Midgard and role-playing games. So if you want to get to know Midgard better, two places to do it: Midgard Adventures Discord server and the koboldpress official Discord server. So those are two great locations to do that. We also have a dedicated channel for That Midgard Show on the server where you can post comments and talk about the content of the show. You can also put it down in the comments below. We will answer your comments, and we'd love to hear some ideas from you as to where we should go next. What areas of Midgard interest you, and then we can plan out the next series of our episodes as well. So there's an invitation to the server down below as well. Check us out. But most importantly, spread the word about That Midgard Show. Help us grow.
Yep, and don't forget we also have a That Midgard Show Twitter. So check us out there. Make sure you're following us. And if you like the show, make sure you click the like button, subscribe to our channel, spread the word about That Midgard Show. We're on all the major podcast platforms, so please subscribe there. Leave us a positive comment or a 5-star review, whatever you can do to help. But like I said, we really appreciate everybody's feedback on the show. We're having a great time doing it, and we really appreciate our community. So thank you for all that. So that's it for today, guys. And remember, as Wolfgang Barr says,
strip it for parts and make it your own. Thank you for joining us. Take care, everyone.